Terrible news, though, in the AFL with Melbourne's Angus Brayshaw forced into retirement, just 28 years old. And this is, of course, from the effects of concussion.
Yes,
that
terrible.
Braden Maynard hit, obviously, the tipping point. Such sad news. He's done some great things, obviously. He's a premiership player, great kid, only 28.
Yeah, it's too young. And we saw this in a final last year. And everyone was like, oh, Maynard should be suspended. But, I mean, the action's so hard in the speed of the game these days, and unfortunately knocked out, and that's pretty much, that's curtains. But a couple of years ago, he obviously suffered some pretty heavy concussions, had to sleep in a dark room for days. So I think the welfare of the players now, it's just getting higher and higher as a priority. And I think from a CBA perspective, they're trying to tackle now, but there's a lot of noise around.
Sorry, Candice, is the decision taken out of his hands or is it his?
I think it'd be taken out of his hands, yeah. Medically now they step in and any player will go, yeah, I'll just keep playing. I think obviously now the protocols and tests they put in place and the governance can really rule you out.
How messy is this going to get for the AFL?
Messy, yeah. There's 100 years of obviously history in our game, and you look at probably even 20 years ago, you got players coming out now that are joining, you know, a pretty substantial lawsuit that is going to take a long time to get through.
Sadly, though, the message doesn't seem to be, well, hasn't immediately got through, has it? Sam Powell-Pepper comes up with this, what can only be described as an ugly
This is probably the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, this is a trial match. And
the reason it's the dumbest thing, you often talk of the speed of the game in AFL. You can get hit any direction. There is no possible way he's tackling there. Like, he's already been tackled. So there's no other option other than the bump. He's head high. It's probably the stupidest thing I've ever seen. So we've tried to eliminate this out of the game. Everyone's now talking about what sort of suspension he's going to cop. It needs to be severe.
How many? Gut feeling?
Gut feeling's 4 to 5. It should be higher, to be fair. I mean, if you're going to stamp that out, he had every opportunity to pull out of that and make a decision. The Maynard one, mid-air, he had no option other than to do what he did and protect himself. He's not protecting himself for there. That's stupid. And 4 to 5 is probably light on.
It's not just the AFL, quite clearly, that happens in the NRL as well. Parramatta's Mika Sivo, he's copped 3 weeks for that. That's a bad hit again on AJ Brimson. It may have been some shoulder in there, but there's, you know, that's head.
Tony, they're the ones I hate because they're so vulnerable. You know, the playmakers of the game. You get a pass away, you're not even looking at them.
Bang.
Your body's in a compromised position. They are gutless and they are weak. Like, I really think that they're the one. No wonder it's hard to find playmakers, Rob. Their self-esteem just gets crushed because they get smashed all the time.
Not only that, but what it does for the parents at home that might be thinking, oh, are we going to put our kids in rugby league this year? Or after seeing that, probably not.
That's where the game, as a player, that's where you go, I'm protected now. I've got rid of the ball, I'm protected. And that's where that penalty for, obviously, the man inflicting that, it's got to be more severe because if they're out 6, 7, 8 weeks, the message will get through. Otherwise, these 3 and 2 week penalties, not enough.
It's been a hellish time, actually, for the Demons. So has Joel Smith, who failed a drug test last year, has now been accused of trafficking cocaine. It's such a big word, trafficking. It is trafficking. Allegations that he offered a quantity of the drug to a teammate has club culture being questioned. Captain Max Gawn had this to say.
Till someone tells me that the hair tests that we have done are proving that we're a drug culture, that's the only market that we have. So in my 10 years, no one's come and told me that our club has a drug culture, so I'm going to go by that.
Tough time.
It's massive. All the noise is about Melbourne now. And Joel Smith's one example, but when your captain comes out and goes, I don't think there's a culture problem, and if there is, then, you know, it's a massive issue because one player's one thing, but to see text messages and, as you said, trafficking is a massive word and pretty broad, Tony, but it just opens up a can of worms for that footy club right on the eve of the first round.
I've never understood the 3-strike policy with the drugs in the AFL. Do you think it's too lenient? Do you think it needs to be improved or worked on?
It was too lenient 15 years ago, to be fair. You know, 1 strike, no one finds out, essentially. 2 strikes, then the club doctor gets notified. 3 strikes, you know, you get a suspension. It's a case of hit it and nip it in the bud. It's 1 strike and everyone knows, and the player gets suspended. So the only way you can do it.
What about the commercial damage to Melbourne? Like, the club is officially on the nose after that. Do you think it would hurt them in the hip pocket? You know, sponsorships at the start of the season and everything.
I think, Crash, to be fair, it's millions. It has to be millions because sponsors now, it's a two-way street. We'll support and sign up, but there's obviously a little bit coming back the other way. If there's anything, you bring the game into disrepute, the club into disrepute. So I'm sure now with Melbourne are in damage control in terms of the money that'll be running out the door right now in terms of sponsors.
Wow. Do you think it'll affect their performance in the first round against the Swans?
You're hoping so, Tony.
I hate to come across shallow. What about culture? Is such a big word. Alistair Clarkson, 2007 at Hawthorn, perception of a problem there, gathers the team around him to go through it. You were in that team.
I was in 07. So a lot of noise, and the media came out that there was Hawthorn players that may have a couple of strikes, and we're all in the dark with it, like Candace said. Like, is it strict enough? Well, we don't know until the second strike comes out, and the medical staff are the only ones. So Clarko, in true Clarko fashion, just nipped it in the bud. We got in. It was big round table discussion with every single player, so 44 players. And it was a case of, this is what Clarko's greatest strength was, get it all out now, and going forward, we're going to be a better team and a better club and culture. And so everyone had the confidence and, to put up their hand if they had put, a foot wrong.
So if you get a strike as a player, did the teammates know?
No.
No, so only the player knows and whoever tested him.
Yep.
If it's
Not even the club doctor in the first round.
Yeah.
So.
if it's not classified
I should have
information,
picked up on that.
how many hands would have gone up at the meeting, roughly?
There was a few, yeah. And I say that on the nicest possible way because it's a big step. We had a young group right then. Like, we went through 2 drafts to get our core players that went on to a successful era. So it was more the senior players that had been through the longer eras that were like, yep, we've seen this and this is what's happening. And and to be fair, a lot of players put their hand up and, I thought it was the most powerful thing that could have been done right there and then.
Wow.